So we're getting into the time of year when a lot of you are probably thinking about starting new habits, building new habits, or building healthier lifestyles in general. And this is the time when a lot of Google searches involve how many days it takes to build a habit. And a lot of us have probably heard various numbers like 7 days, 14 days, 21 days, 90 days. And this is not exactly the case. Building a healthy habit is a little bit more nuanced than just pure repetition. And a lot of those rules that indicate that you can build a healthy habit or establish a healthy habit, or any habit for that matter, that sticks by just repeating it for X number of days, only looks at a teeny tiny part of the bigger picture. And it can also be incredibly discouraging. So before we get into what exactly it does take to build a healthy habit and why the repetition concept isn't quite accurate, let's first just establish what exactly a habit is. So most people would probably define a habit as something that you do repeatedly at a certain frequency and with consistency. So that is a very, very loose definition of what a habit is. The reason I say that's a loose definition is because a lot of things can fall into those parameters and not exactly be a habit. For example, most people go to work on a set schedule with a set frequency and pretty consistently. However, I don't think anyone would consider the act of going to work a healthy habit. Rather, the proper definition of a habit is something that you do in response to an outside stimulus consistently. This definition, I know it probably seems like I'm splitting hairs on this, but understanding this definition is important in how we approach building a habit. The reason for that is if we look at it and we look at the proper definition, we see that the key is an automatic response to a specific stimulus, rather than purely repeating something for X number of times. So to give you an example of what this means or what this looks like, for example, if you're trying to train your dog to sit, if you're just purely looking at it based on the repetition definition of a habit, in theory, your dog probably sits dozens of times a day, every day. So in theory, they know how to sit, and that's true. They do know physically how to sit down. However, training your dog to sit isn't just teaching them the mechanics of how to sit down. Training your dog to sit means teaching them to sit on command in response to an outside stimulus. So it is a habit and it's reflexive. We have to take this same approach when we're building our own healthy habits. So rather than just focusing on doing something a certain amount of times and expecting it to be automatic, you instead have to focus on what is triggering you to perform that habit. So taking that same dog training example and moving it into your personal life and your health. If, for example, you prescribe to the 21 days belief of building a habit, based on that logic, if you forced yourself without fail to work out every single morning for 21 days in a row, by the end of that 21 days, more likely than not, you will not have built the habit of working out in the morning. What you'll come away from that experience with is probably a little bit of soreness and pain, worst case scenario, some injuries, and more likely than not, a lot of frustration around working out because you've made it something that you have to do regardless of how you feel, and there's no flexibility, and you're not doing it in response to anything positive. You're doing it just because it's a pure obligation. So now after you've done that for that long and you're feeling all these negative feelings toward it, or maybe feeling physical symptoms or soreness from it, you're now associating that workout with frustration, obligation, discomfort, and maybe even pain. That's not what we want to do if we're building a healthy habit. Rather, what we want to do is set ourselves up to frame that habit in a positive light until it becomes automatic. And the easiest way to do this is to start very, very small, so small that it might almost seem like a waste of time. So, for example, when I have a client that says that they really want to work out in the morning because that's just easier in their day, things are less likely to get in the way, etc., etc. rather than telling them that they have to do it for 3 days this week or they failed, instead we stick to whatever workout routine they're on at the moment, and we start doing other smaller things in the morning that are focused on their wellness. So for example, maybe the easiest thing for them to do first thing in the morning is, as soon as they wake up, the first thing they do is take some deep breaths. And that kind of sets the tone for the day a little bit. And then after they've done that, maybe they'll graduate from deep breaths to meditation or stretching, just depending on what's more relevant to them, for 2 or 3 minutes. And then once that has become a habit, perhaps they'll add that they get up, do some deep breathing, do some stretching, fill their water bottle. And then you can kind of see how this moves further and further down the line into healthier habits. And as we go through, that can transition into a workout. The reason that works is because by doing that in very small bite-sized pieces, you're not just forcing yourself to work out or do X habit every morning. What you're doing is training your brain to think about your wellness and your self-care in whatever capacity is relevant to you first thing in the morning. So you're training yourself to, the moment your eyes open, the first thing your mind thinks about is taking care of yourself. If you can get yourself to do that, it's a pretty easy leap to go from, well, I'm already thinking about taking care of myself and what I can do, I might as well work out, or I might as well stretch, or whatever it is that you're wanting to do in that setting. And obviously this is a morning habit. This can be applied to any situation. It's just a matter of creating that set of external cues or external stimuli that will trigger you to think about your wellness at a certain time of day or at a certain frequency throughout the day. And again, same thing can happen around your meals. You can start with something small and just start with the act of being conscious of your choices and build on that until it becomes automatic. So now that we've established how to physically implement a healthy habit and how to create that stimulus, I want to take a second to just talk about why the repetition concept is a problem, and why that can cause you to feel really frustrated. For anyone that has already experienced this and just feels like no matter what they do with their health and wellness, they just never seem to reach their goals or they can't be consistent, more likely than not, you are not the problem. It's more the terminology and the language and the mindset around fitness, specifically the verbiage that is used by like big fitness media and big gyms and things like that are just trying to sell you their product. If we look at the example that I gave of someone that just focuses on repetition, if that person gets to the end of those 21 days and falls into the path that I described, which is going to be most people, some people do perfectly fine, but most people will not respond well to that. If you have spent all of this time reading that if you just are consistent for 21 days and then you're good to go after that, and then you try to execute that and feel the exact opposite, it's easy to feel like there's something wrong with you. Like you're broken because the rules say that after 21 days you should be good, but that's not what you're experiencing. And if the rules say that and it doesn't go that way for you, there must be something wrong with you. That is the problem surrounding a lot of language in the fitness industry in general. The fact is there aren't really any black and white rules to reach X goal, you must do A, B, and C, and then you're guaranteed. That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen for anyone because no one's life, no one's body looks the same. So when you're building these habits, rather than following fitness rules and black and white paths, focus more on listening to yourself and your body and how you feel and focusing on your goals, and trying to cater those habits to your specific path rather than following some template that someone created on a whim and is now trying to sell you for $20. Focus more on your specific path and you'll, one, feel a lot better and feel less like you're spiraling and like things aren't working for you. And you'll actually be putting yourself on a path that is 100% unique to you. No one else's fitness structure will look like what you're doing. And it will always work for you and you'll always be able to adapt it because it was customized to you from step one. So you aren't going to end up feeling like you constantly have to find and start a new program because you moved or you changed jobs or your schedule changes. If you do it in little habits and base it on your life, it's much easier to stick to and adapt. That this kind of summary and explanation of how building habits at least helps you frame your mindset differently and have a different outlook on the entire process. But for anyone that feels like they need more help, down below we're going to link the our Work and Wellness Balance ebook. That book guides you through mindset change, behavior change, exercise, nutrition, specifically building it around you, and how to adjust your habits accordingly to make sure that what you're doing truly fits your lifestyle. We will also, for those that prefer written content over video content, basically this entire video I also have written in a blog, so that'll be linked below as well for you to check out. And I will see you next time. Bye.